Saffron, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Been looking forward to this. Tell me, who is Saffron Barker?
Gosh, that's such a hard question. It's hard when you're answering it about yourself. I'm a daughter. I'm a lover. I love. I'm fiercely loyal. I'm definitely I'm very optimistic. Always have been. I'm definitely extroverted.
Always been that way?
Yes, I've always been that way. Yeah, absolutely. If you look at, like, when I watch back my childhood videos, I'm always the loudest, most outgoing child.
Singing with a hairbrush?
100%. I put on performances to my parents every single night. And I've always been a businesswoman because I've made them pay for these performances too.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It was always
Knew
like,
your worth early.
Yeah.
That's entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah, and they didn't want to watch it, but I'd make them come and watch me sing and perform and dance, and yeah, always been that way.
That means there's an underlying confidence. Where's that come from? Because so much of what you've gone on to do needs confidence. So it feels like you built that early on from probably getting a reaction from people and realizing there was ultimately a talent there. Where did that come from?
I think probably having two brothers helped, because my family have always been, we're very competitive with each other. And I think having two brothers, I always wanted to make a point that, like, you know, I was the only daughter and I wanted to, like, find a way to somehow stick out. And I always wanted to be my parents' favorite. Always.
So competitive?
Yeah, always competitive. They're so competitive. And I think I just always wanted to prove a point with them. I think that's probably where it started from, honestly. And my brothers were both, well, not so much my younger brother, but my older brother was always very confident. And so I think I probably got that from him. But my mum also, my mum's a very confident woman, and very outgoing. She's always told me anything I've wanted to do in life, I can do. And so I think because I've always had that mindset, yeah, I think she's always been so big on self-belief. And I think that's probably where the confidence does come from.
Yeah. And you started ultimately YouTubing really young, 13 years old. So that support ultimately from your parents feels like, you know, that was pioneering. That was also quite vulnerable, if you like. You were putting yourself out there. How supportive were your parents of that?
Oh, massively.
Brilliant.
To be honest, I actually don't know how they were so supportive, because like you said, when I first started out, I didn't even know that it could be a job. I honestly did it as a hobby.
It wasn't, right?
Well, it wasn't, no. Well, I mean, there was probably, I would say, a handful of YouTubers at the time who were a lot older than I was. Well, probably the age that I am now. So I'm now 24, and I think they're about 24, 25. And there was, like I said, a handful of YouTubers, but I didn't know at the time that they was earning money. So it wasn't a well-known thing that you could make money. And to be honest, it probably wasn't making that much money at the time.
So that's a relatively new thing, isn't it, actually? So
yes.
Yeah, you've come through that journey.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest, I started earning money pretty quickly. When I did it, I think because it started to kind of grow and blow up the time that I started. So I got very lucky in that sense. But yeah, I mean, when my parents allowed me to, you know, reach for this goal, which was just to be a really successful YouTuber. I mean, because I didn't really do the last year of school, and I didn't go to college. And I think for my parents to allow me to do that, when I look back, I'm like, how? But I think it's because my mum always knew that I'm not very academic. I'm dyslexic. I didn't enjoy school. And the only thing I loved doing was performing and entertaining.
So recognizing the strengths was key,
right?
Yeah,
and so I think that's what, my mum was a bit like, you know, this is something she can be really successful in, so I'm just gonna give her everything and push her to the extreme. And so, yeah, I guess that's what she did. Because even my mum's friends at the time said to her, are you really sure about not sending Saffron to college? My mum was like, well, she can go to college whenever she wants. Whereas, you know, she's growing so fast at this and loves what she's doing. Why would she not just do it now?
You built momentum, right?
Yeah.
You built habits. You built a following, which is, we now know, is so important. You know, I mean, I think the stat is over 60% now of Gen Zers, when they're asked what they would like to do as a career, is to be a social media influencer.
Which is crazy, because I remember watching I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And years ago, it was like, what do children want to be nowadays? And it used to be like, I don't know, a fireman or something. And now I remember, like, not so long ago, it was a YouTuber. And it just blew my mind that many children or that many, the Gen Z want to be YouTubers and want to be social media stars.
I love that, because actually you've reframed something there. So Kylie Minogue, Rihanna have become influencers through a career that's been successful, following what they want to do as a passion. Your passion is to be an actress, I believe.
Yes.
So you could argue that you are actually, having become a well-known influencer, could actually now have a really good chance at that because you put yourself out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm somebody who I see challenges as opportunities. And so I think that's also where, again, like my confidence and stuff comes from, because you never know where something can lead you. And like you said, it's so amazing how many doors this career has opened for me. And I've always wanted to be on stage, like acting, singing or dancing. That's what I grew up doing. So if it does end up opening that door of acting, it's like it's done a full 360. But
ultimately you're manifesting it, right? You're thinking, you know what you want to do. And so you're heading in that direction whilst doing all the things you're doing. How much now at 24, with this amazing kind of, you're almost a veteran of it now at 24, how much of what you're doing every day is what you now want to do? Because I imagine at certain times, and going back to you taking money off your parents and you perform, there was an element of building a career out of it, proving that it's a business, but probably doing certain things that you might not have wanted to or been passionate about. Are you now in a position where the things you can do and the things you can associate with are really aligned?
Yes, definitely. I think when I first started out, I mean, I loved it, don't get me wrong, but there was definitely a point where I hit burnout because I was filming my life every single day for 2.5 years straight. And then on top of that, I had another channel, which I would upload 2 videos. So in total, I uploaded 9 videos a week, and I would edit them, film them, everything myself. I mean, I don't even know how I slept. I could not do that now. So I don't know how I did it.
That's interesting, because a lot of people looking in on what you do could say it looks really easy. But you're working massively long hours there as an entrepreneur and a content creator, coming up with the ideas, the concepts, then actually filming it and then editing it and so on. That's all you, right?
Yeah. I mean, my mum would definitely help me come up with ideas and stuff, but it took up all of my free time. That was, when people say it was easy, my job might look easy now because now I'm in a position where I can choose what I do want to do. But yeah, I think lots of people didn't see when I was age 14, 15, 16, I genuinely worked so hard, and I'm proud of myself to say that I did. And a lot of it I do owe to my mum as well, because when I was like 14, 15, I was in school and lots of kids had a lot of things to say. And there were some times where, I really wanted to go to this like party after school. And my mum would say, well, you can go, but don't think I'm going to help you film all day tomorrow, because that's your choice. You make the choice what you want to do. If you want this to be a career and not go to college, then you need to really put in the work. And so she put a discipline in place. She definitely put a discipline in place, and I'm so grateful.
Totally, so grateful. And you're not going to learn that in school necessarily.
No,
I've got,
absolutely
again,
not.
2 kids, 13 and 15, and they're learning stuff at school that, dare I say, they're not going to be using in everyday life. You were learning stuff that you can now use forever, and actually you pioneered so much. And I'd love to talk to you about that, because coming up with ideas with your mum and coming up with videos that then have built this following and this career. How alone did you feel at that point? And did you have a role model to look at? There was no one else really doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely was times where I felt alone, for sure. Especially when at that age, it was so important to be popular in school. And of course I wanted to be popular like the other kids and stuff. And I couldn't go to the parties and stuff that they went to because I was always prioritizing my work and my career. And I also knew as well, like my mum knew, that this was what I was good at. So I also wanted to make the most of it. Yeah, so there definitely were times where I felt lonely, but I'm also very family orientated, and my family very quickly started doing what I was doing. So everyone in my family is like a YouTuber now. Yeah, my older brother has a family channel. So you influenced
your family?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Completely. I mean, they really had no choice but to be in it, because I was filming my life every day. So they didn't particularly want to be in it, but they did it because it meant a lot to me. Yeah. I mean, my younger brother, he hated it, because when I tell you every day there were comments in school, and we was in high school at the same time, he's 2 years below me, even like the back of his head, he would start crying if it was in my video, because everyone would talk about us in school, and he didn't like it. And it wasn't good things, because now it probably would be a good thing if somebody had hundreds of thousands of followers, because, you know, most kids nowadays want that. But at the time, it was someone doing something new that a lot of people couldn't understand, and people don't like things that they can't understand.
Resistant to change.
Exactly.
You've opened up something that is really important to you that I wanted to ask you. And again, going back to my own daughters, one daughter in particular who would probably love to do what you're doing, but isn't brave enough to. That judgment, that bullying, you know, and a lot of that probably comes from jealousy. You know, who does Saffron think she is, and so on. But actually, one, you're following your passion, and two, you've got the confidence and the conviction to do it. But how did you deal with the negatives? You know, your own brother going, stop it, and so on, and not being happy. Clearly, you were dedicated to the kind of cause, but how did it affect you in any way? The negative comments, you know, anything that was sort of trying to derail you?
I think having the support that I had definitely helped. I think having parents that were so behind me definitely helped, because I know for a fact I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for them. Even, yes, my younger brother hated it, but I knew he was proud of me for doing it. He just didn't want the limelight himself. And my older brother was so behind and so for me. And I had really great friends who, it's weird actually, because my friends wouldn't speak about it in school, but outside of school they would speak about it. It was all,
why do you think that was?
Again, because it didn't look very cool. And I understood that that's the thing. Like, it was hard for me because I was thinking, well, you're my best friends. Like, why does no one ever ask me, oh, how's it going? Even though they know that, you know, I'd missed my dance exam because I was going to the Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards in LA. But no one would ask me about it in school. It was like, it was just never spoken about. And I think, yeah, it came down to, it just drew a lot of attention, and just, it got to a point where no one wanted to talk about it.
Did you ever have a moment where you thought, you know, something happened or something was said and you questioned yourself, or were you always that focused on just, and you built a habit up of doing it every day?
There were definitely moments. I mean, yeah, my family were like my support system, and I definitely couldn't have done it without them. But I mean, of course, the negative, I mean, you could have 1,000 nice comments and one negative comment will always stick out. It always will. And there definitely were times where I thought to myself, what am I doing? Or, you know, I think especially, I mean, I do it still now to this
You'll still
day,
have that now. So what's your coping mechanism with that? You've got 1,000 comments of love this, amazing, and then someone says something, just, you know, what's your process of dealing with that?
Honestly, I think the most powerful thing you can do is just to ignore it, because these people do it for attention. And I think I learned that pretty early on. I mean, I remember my mum would react to negative comments, and I wouldn't, because I didn't want people to see it, but my mum would react, and there was never a positive outcome that would come from her reacting.
That's protection of you,
yeah,
isn't it?
Of course. It was to protect me, and, you know, she felt all the feelings I feel, you know, as a parent, you feel that, what your child feels. And so whenever somebody would say something nasty to me, my mum would want to protect me and would react to it. And very early on, we learn reacting to it does absolutely nothing. You're giving them exactly what they want.
Putting your energy into it as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't really think there is anything else you can do other than ignoring it, but that doesn't make it any easier,
No,
obviously,
I get that.
because it will always affect you. I think as long as you believe in what you're doing and it makes you happy, I think you're able to stick to it. And realize that that person behind a computer screen clearly isn't very happy, because I know, even if I wasn't doing this job, I know for a fact I would never write something negative about somebody online. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't feel the need to do that.
Well, you've got the empathy to know what it feels like, and again,
Completely.
You're happy in what you're doing. There's clearly a lot of people that aren't, and
Yeah,
I guess
and
that's a way of you framing that. And back to that kind of mixing up the confidence that you've got from what you're doing, the support that you've got from your family. If someone was watching and listening to this now, whether they're a young version of yourself or someone that's maybe pivoting in life as an adult, going, I'd love to do what she's doing, but I don't have the confidence. I don't have the support network. I'm not brave enough to put myself out there and film myself to camera. What advice would you give them?
I would probably say, well, first of all, I would say, I think I've always said in life, if you want to do something badly enough, just go for it, because what is the worst that can happen?
Following your passion, right?
Following your passion, and what is the worst that can happen? Like, the worst thing, even asking a question, the worst thing somebody could say is no. That is literally the worst thing that can happen. And with you uploading something online, the worst thing that could happen is it probably doesn't get as many views as you want it to in your head. I mean, that's something that takes time anyways. And the negative comments, they're going to be there whether or not you have 10 million views or 100 views. It's going to be there either way. So I think if you're passionate about it, you should just go for it. I think it is definitely easier said than done. Just saying to somebody, just go and do it, because...
What I love is it's no regrets, right? So there's probably people that, dare I say, are locking themselves up to then be like, I wish I'd done that. And particularly, if you look at what you're doing, you're getting to have the most amazing life experiences now. Just come back from a cruise. How many people want to do that, but they pay for it? You ultimately are allowed to do that as a job. And to actually say how much you're enjoying it and put it out there, that benefits the cruise company, and you get to have an amazing experience. It's a win-win. So slightly different way of asking a question I might have kind of touched on already, but coming from a parenting point of view. So if 60+% of Gen Zers want to come through now and be influencers, there's parents that could turn around and say, that's not a job, that's not a thing. Make sure you finish your exams and so on. This is almost a message from you to parents that are looking at it going, well, actually, look how well I've done. There's probably going to be some lessons on it in the future. Hard to imagine, but literally, because you learned it on the job, right?
Yeah.
So what would be the sort of conversation you'd have with someone where they're a parent of a child that wants to go into it and they are really obstructive? They don't see the value.
I would probably say, if you're, whatever it is in life, if it's this job or anything else, if it's that they want to be a footballer or whatever, I think if you're passionate about something, I think anyone can be successful in something they're passionate about. Whether or not you end up going down the exact route you plan to in your head, in some way you can lean into that. And I think you just have to be passionate about it. So I think if I was telling somebody's parents, if somebody wanted to be a YouTuber and their parents weren't for it, I would say to them, just watch what happens when somebody's passionate about something that they love, and you will see the success. I think, it's really easy to say it's not a proper job. I mean, I got told that it actually wasn't really a proper job, to be fair, when I first started out. And my teachers, that was the exact thing my teachers would say to me.
Interesting.
Was, but that's not a proper job. That's never going to last. That's not going to be a thing. How are you going to get paid for that? I got told that constantly.
How do you feel about that now? Flourishing and thriving in a...
Yeah, I mean, it feels so great now, because
right?
I'm like, I've proved a point, which I love proving a point. Now it feels great. Sure. But I mean, I got told that a lot. I think if I was a parent, whatever my child wanted to be, and I think it's because I've experienced it firsthand, I think I would support them in every single way that I could to do whatever they wanted to do. Because, I think it all just goes down to, if you're passionate about it, you can be successful at it. And it's probably not like the normal path to go down, but it doesn't mean that it's not the correct path to go down.
Yeah. There's so much there to unravel, and I think from a confidence point of view and a self-belief, that's what I'm really picking up on. And if you can find that in yourself, let alone if you can bring your family in, you've ultimately proven that. We sort of touched on success there. You have been successful in what you've done, and you've got a whole life ahead of you as well. Sitting here now, how would you define success?
I would define success as just being happy. I think, for me right now, I probably feel the happiest I've ever felt. And I think I've learned the balance of my career, the time I spend with my family, my friends, my boyfriend. I think it's all of those things. I think success is happiness. That's what it is. And it's having balance. Yeah.
And at times, because I can feel that radiating from you now, right? There's a glow without any arrogance, just like you're in a place, you're here because you want to be. You're doing what you're doing afterwards because you want to. Going back to almost that sort of advice side of things, you probably had to experience quite a few things because you pioneered so much, and there weren't people in front of you to do it. Is there any kind of real lesson? Is there anything that you'd be like, you must look out for this? For example, I imagine that you are almost a target for these huge amount of people that want to come into that space now. So you get built up, you become popular, but there's countless people who probably love to knock you off your perch, bring you down. Is there anything you can advise to look out for that you've gone through that you would advise someone coming in?
Yeah, I think one thing I learned is there was definitely, when I going back to the point where I hit burnout and I was uploading far too much.
How old are you at this point?
17.
So you were sort of 4 years in.
4 years in, and uploading, like I said, every single day religiously. I think when I hit that point, I realized I was just uploading for the sake of uploading. And I think with this career, it's about consistency. I don't think anyone can grow on this platform without being consistent. I really don't, because the problem is it's so oversaturated that everyone's doing it nowadays. I mean, even if you're not called an influencer, you probably, if you upload on Instagram, in some way you are an influencer.
Personal brand?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm probably guilty of that. And I feel a bit of a pressure to post as well. I mean, you were doing it every day. So is there almost a dopamine hit addiction that goes with that?
100%. And I think you've definitely got to be consistent to be successful at this job. But I think the biggest thing I learned was, again, it goes back to finding a balance. It's being consistent, but not just uploading content for the sake of uploading it. Like, it is obviously quality over quantity, but to a certain degree, because I do think with this career, it's so fast paced that you stop uploading, somebody will find somebody else to watch. Like, it's that easy. It's not, you don't have to go looking for somebody else to watch. It's really easy to go and find somebody else to watch, you know? There's hundreds of thousands of people doing it every day. So I think the thing that I learned was to have balance and to upload when I want to upload. And that does mean that I still need to push myself. Yeah, but it means that also take a step back and realize why you started doing this and what you want people to get from your content. And I think that's something it took me quite a while to learn, because I started just uploading for the sake of uploading. And then you would say things that you don't even mean, or you would, I think a lot of that, you know, because people really read into everything you say. And if I just spent the time just to edit it and watch it back and take quality. Some time with it, quality, you would have...
I love that, because there's a purpose now to everything you do, whereas you were a machine before, because it's all you knew, it's what you created. So I guess if you've got a purpose that aligns with what you're doing, then that also affects and benefits your mental health, because social media gets a really bad rep from causing mental health. And doom scrolling and algorithms based on addiction is not healthy.
No.
But you're a force for good with social media. You're putting out positive messages. You're a super positive person. And now everything you're putting out is purposeful and giving positivity. You've mentioned burnout. How have you ultimately managed your mental health? And what do you do? You know, do you spend time meditating? You know, there's so many things we can now do for both our mental and physical health. What works for you in such a fast pace and giving you sort of perspective, if you like?
I think for me, what works is honestly just having a couple of days off.
So making time.
Just making time for myself.
What do you do? What would you do? Is there certain things like go for a walk in nature, or just have time out?
I love working out. I think the endorphins I get from working out make me feel unbelievable. And I think it's probably, I'm not good at switching off. I've tried meditating. I've tried all of these different things. And I would love, and one day I'm going to say that I can do it. But I can't do it. I cannot do it. My mind is always 100 miles an hour. And I'm always thinking about what I'm doing next, which is not great, because I'm not very great at being present, because I am always thinking about the future and what step I'm going to do. I mean, even if I'm laying on a sunbed, all I'm doing is overthinking what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to do later.
But you've taken the time to lie there, which helps process it, because it's making the time, hence those 2 days out. You take time out, and then actually I'm the same. I'll take time out. I'll go to the spa, but I'm not sitting in the hydrotherapy pool not thinking about anything.
No, you're
it's like
still
a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
I'm putting it all back together.
Well, that's why I like the gym, because you have to actually physically do something where you can't think about something else. You know, when I'm thinking about, I've got to hit 12 reps, I'm thinking about just making it through the 12 reps. It's probably the only time in my life where I'm not thinking about something else. I think that's why personally I love the gym so much. But I think it's just making time for myself and spending time with those who I love, who I thrive off connection of other people, and I love having people in my life who are positive and motivational, and I'm very big into manifestation. I mean, if somebody heard myself and my friendship group in a room together, they would probably think we're nuts, because all we talk about is our goals and our future and how we're going to make this happen.
What's wrong with that?
And, well, they're very far-fetched, but I mean, I'm all here for it.
Well, let's talk about that. So you want to be an actress. So what's the North Star? Because your journey is already, you know, from such a young age, successful. So many things you've done. What have you not done that you'd like to do? Maybe a brand you want to work with or something you'd love to do in your role. And then from an acting point of view, what would be your North Star?
Well, I think from the acting point of view, my dream is Marvel. I am the biggest Marvel fan, which a lot of people wouldn't know about me. And so I think to play some sort of like Marvel character, some sort of like boss woman.
You've got the energy for it, 100%.
Would be my dream. I think it's because in another universe, I'm like, that's what I'd do. That would be like my dream. Also, I love singing and performing and dancing. So I mean, to be in the West End or Broadway, I would have the absolute time of my life. And I think it would feel like my childhood dreams have come true because that's all I ever wanted to do growing up. So I think that's like probably my biggest goal acting wise. For the career that I'm in now, it's actually a really hard question to answer, and I'm going to be better at answering it now than I would have a year ago, because maybe 2 years ago or a year ago, if somebody asked me that, I really would have had no answer whatsoever, because I felt like I had accomplished everything that I wanted to, and I didn't really know what was next. And that was really scary for me, because growing up, I always knew what I wanted to do. I know that YouTube wasn't a job, but before I wanted to be a YouTuber, I was in a girl band and I wanted to be a singer. And I was adamant that's what I was going to be, a singer. And then when we split up, which I know we was only like 13, but it was my whole life. I mean, even my parents cried, because I traveled to London every day to the recording studio. I was going to be a singer. That was that. When that happened, I was like, what am I going to do with myself? 2 days later, I start YouTube. So I always had something that I wanted to do.
And you don't wallow either. You don't sit around, because a lot that could have crushed, especially at 13, right? Dreams, because that involved big names as well. That was a big deal.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
It's gone.
And then it's gone.
You could have gone on a very downward spiral there. So that positivity, and again, probably family influence, is huge, right?
Yeah, and I think actually, when you're somebody that has a dream, you don't realize how. My best friend and I would talk about this a lot. She wants to be a singer. She's the most incredible singer ever. And she will be the biggest pop star one day. I can guarantee you it. But for now, when she gets down about, I just really want to be successful, really want to be this. She said to me, actually, this was maybe like 6 months ago, she said, I've realized how lucky I am that I have a dream, because to not have one, I don't know what my purpose would be in life. And I think that's what I've always been so grateful for, is I've always had a dream and something to strive for. And my younger brother, he was always very much the opposite. He never knew what he wanted to do. And I found that really hard to understand. And I really felt for him that he didn't know what he wanted to do. And that was really hard for him, and that's a lot of people, you grow up, you don't know what you want to do. I was always so lucky that I knew what I wanted to do. And when it hit to a point where I, reached all the things that I wanted to do, that was like the hardest thing in the world for me, because I was like, what am I going to do now?
No more steps of a ladder.
Yeah.
So what did you do then?
That's when I really started to focus on acting, because I realized how it's something I've always wanted to do. And why would I now not do that?
Now everything you do will be steering towards that, even subconsciously.
Completely.
Decisions you make, things you do. So, 100% can see you in Marvel in not the too distant future. If you were now, with this perspective and maturity, it sounds crazy saying to you as a 24-year-old, and having pioneered and come through such an innovative kind of business, if you like, to be the person you are, what advice would you give to the younger version of yourself? And I know we've kind of touched on this, but just that one piece of advice that someone looking into your world now, and you would give that younger version to help smooth the path that you've been on.
I think it's pretty obvious, but I think I would say never stop believing in yourself. I think obviously that's something I did, and it got me to where I am today, but there was times where I really did struggle with that. And if I knew what I had now, I would have never have doubted myself, but obviously there was still lots of self-doubt along the way. And so, I think it would just be to believe in myself and just learn and do the things that make you happy and make you love yourself as well, because I think believing in myself was great, but also I would get picked apart online for the way that I looked as well. And I think this is, again, when you're in school and stuff, it's something, even now as an adult, everyone cares what they look like. And if you say you don't, you're lying, because if you feel good, from within, your confidence just shines through. And so I think I would also say to myself, take some time to do the things that make you happy and actually learn to love yourself a bit more as well. Because I never, although I was really confident, I believed in myself, I never loved myself growing up, ever. Like I always picked myself apart, and that was something I hid massively. And it's probably something I've only learned within like the last, honestly, even like the last year and a half. It's probably it's how long it's taken me to actually love myself.
So glad you shared that, because you know, beautiful, glamorous, confident, that isn't necessarily relatable to someone that's thinking that's what I'm thinking. And you just said you are only just getting used to that now. It's powerful. Everything you just said, super powerful. So much on social media can be so inauthentic. You know, there's people that might have the wrong motives, or they just want to be famous. It's almost obvious. They just want to build a following. Whereas everything I've seen, heard and watched about you is authentic and just being the real you. Have you always stayed true to that?
Yeah, I think because I had no one to compare myself to, like when I first started, I mean, I've always been myself, like 100%. I've never tried to be somebody else. I definitely think it's easier now to not be so authentic, because you can see somebody successful and think, I want to be that. So you end up copying down that route. But actually, what will make you so much more successful is just being yourself. Nobody wants to watch you trying to be somebody else. Everyone wants to see you for you. And I think, especially growing up as well, a lot of people could relate to me, because I was just a normal teenage girl that was going through my GCSEs and my exams like every one of us. And I got spots like every one of us. And so I think, that's definitely such a great point, is just being authentic. And it's something I've tried to keep the entire time throughout my career.
Yeah, without even being conscious of it. It's the relatability, you know, and I feel like I'm craving that now. You know, we are in a relatively formal environment, but being ourselves, you know, the setting is a setting, but the conversation is raw and real. Whereas it feels like I'm calling out things that are too staged or too set up for potential the wrong reasons. And then I think that relatability is what's coming through, and you've got that in spades. I'm looking forward to the Hollywood premiere. You must make sure that I
You'll
get
be
front row
invited,
seats.
absolutely.
You know this, and we actually talked about it previously outside. You know, you're a role model, which at times I know you've almost felt under pressure, but you are. And you know, you're a role model for parents looking in with children growing up. You're a role model for anyone coming through in sort of how to navigate, how to behave. So credit to you. And I could talk to you for a lot longer, but we need to end there. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Saffron.
Thank you very much.